Hi, everyone. This is a short screencast for Independent Colleges Dublin for CIMA E1 for November 2014. And in this screencast, we're going to be taking just a very quick overview of change management with reference to IT, information technology. And certainly in terms of the E stream for CIMA and indeed E1, what you often find is a situation where the IT or indeed IS side of a company has a requirement for change. Let's say that there are problems with the system, the IS system is not providing the information that the company needs, and it may well be that a new system is put into place, and that would be the typical scenario within E1. And if that does take place, then as you'd appreciate, some sort of management of the change, some sort of acceptance of the fact that people are sometimes wary of change, and that process needs to be managed. So what we're required to do is sort of rely on theorists, and in this particular case, Lewin would be the main theorist in this area of change management. And what Lewin does is provide us with a series of models that we can apply to a given situation or a given scenario. Okay, so really the first model here is what is referred to as Lewin's three-stage change process. And what he talks about is really three main areas: unfreeze, move, and refreeze. So in effect, what he's saying is that where a change or a change process is about to take place, in order to manage it properly, you have to recognize what you need to do under those three headings, or indeed under the three stages. And the first one here is this idea of unfreeze, so really unfreeze behavior. And how do you do that with employees or staff involved? And really what you've got to do, according to Lewin, is really to sell and motivate the change, the required change to the people involved. Okay, one aspect of change is that it's very, very difficult to implement any change, particularly considerable changes within an organization. And some theorists would argue that 70% of change fails. So in this particular case, the starting point for us, this unfreeze phase, is really to sell in the change to the stakeholders involved. The second phase is what we call move, and it's sometimes referred to as change, believe it or not. And really, under that heading, the change is actually taking place. So really what we've got to be doing in terms of stakeholders that are involved in the company, particularly employees, is really communicating what's going on and indeed encouraging those involved. So this stage is where really things start to happen. And then on the right-hand side, we see refreeze. And really, with the change having taken place, what we're looking to do there, as the word said, is to really consolidate and indeed to reinforce the change. So in that way, the change will run more smoothly, and really the company gets to where it needs to go, perhaps in terms of a new IT system. So really this model, for E1 purposes, is very, very straightforward, just three stages in it. And really what Lewin is trying to do is to give us advice under each of those stages. Okay. Now, the next model that Lewin provides us with, we don't have a diagram here, but I don't really think we need one. This is a very, very simple, perhaps more simple than the three-stage process above. What Lewin talks about is a force field analysis. And in effect, what he means by that is that there are a series of factors where a change is about to take place that will drive the change. That may well be senior management, and there may also be, or there's likely to be, a series of restraining forces. That could well be the attitude of the employees. Now, what he suggests that we do, and again, it's a fairly simplistic idea, is that obviously we exploit the driving forces for change and encourage them and push them, and try as far as possible to reduce the restraining forces. Okay, so pretty simplistic, easy to remember, hopefully, and if that comes up in the exam, that should be a question or an area that you should be easily able to apply your knowledge to. Okay. Now, one of the things that we've talked about is problems with change and the difficulty of implementing change. And I think the key phrase here is really resistance. Whether or not we're dealing with E1 or any of the eStream papers, or even in real life, there invariably is going to be resistance to change, referred to perhaps as restraining forces under Lewin's force field analysis. And what Cotter and Schlesinger do, and this is a pretty helpful list here, not a lot of detail, but I think it's fairly self-explanatory. What Cotter and Schlesinger provide us with here is a series of options which can be used individually or even combined, ways in which we can overcome resistance. So for example, this is not dissimilar to the three-stage process here. He suggests that where there is resistance, communication and indeed education, in other words, informing people about what's going on, making them aware of exactly what's going to happen, is a possible route. Another route might be involving them, so letting them participate and involve themselves in the change. A couple of other ones here, obviously negotiation and agreement, always consulting with individuals involved, getting their views and trying to involve them again. The last few, probably not overly popular here, manipulation, indeed coercion. Really there what you're trying to do is to get your own way, and perhaps even force individuals to accept change in some way, shape or form. So really this area of 6 possible approaches, as I say, they can be combined, quite useful and very often examined, quite possibly also in the section C of E1 as well as in other areas. But I would certainly would thought this lend itself to a section C style question where you're required to outline for a particular entity or company the possible avenues that they could go down in relation to any resistance to change that they're experiencing. So really this set of 6 items is something that I would suggest that you rote learn. Okay, final point here, just a couple of points in relation to the type of change that's taking place, or perhaps the characteristics of change. Pace, speed, obviously perhaps the slower the better for some people, and certainly manner, we referred to that above. In other words, the way in which the change is introduced. They touch on coercion here as being a possibility, and we've touched on that in relation to Cotter and Schlesinger. In terms of scope, we're really looking at the extent to the change and whether or not the full scope is fully known by all the people involved, and that's probably quite important, an important aspect of change, making clear exactly what is going to happen and ensuring that you follow through on that basis. Okay, so that's a very quick run through IT and change management, and I hope it's been helpful. Many thanks.